number 5. Does that make us at the halfway point or
Close
no?
to it, yeah.
We're close. I'm not going to count it as that yet because DeLand's only played 2 games. But regardless, we are technically in week 5. I am Zach Dean. This is Chris Boyle. High school football really in full swing now with district play well underway. We had a heck of a week last week. I don't think it disappointed. Creek had a huge lead evaporate in the waning 2 quarters. DeLand dominated the first half against Seminole. They lost, so it was a bit of a separation Friday as we thought it was.
You're right, and it all happened in that one district, 2-8A, and obviously a big step forward for both Seminole and for Flagler Palm Coast and University as well. Can't be forgetting about the Titans, who are on a bye this week.
They will let us know if we forget about
Right,
that.
they moved to 3-0. They beat Ocala Westport on the road to get off on the right start. They'll be home in 2 weeks, but yeah, Flagler and Seminole both get off to a good start in that district. And now it's a catch-up game for both DeLand and Spruce Creek, who are actually playing next week as well.
Speaking of Flagler and DeLand, I mean, really all those teams are back in the forefront again this week. Flagler is back at home. They get Fletcher, which is a tough test up in Jacksonville. Spruce Creek heads to New Smyrna. Seminole is back in the area for the second straight week against Mainland. We'll start with that one. Mainland obviously cruised to an opening district win last week. This is not a district game, but for playoff points and whatnot, this is a big one for both teams. I saw Seminole last week. They looked very impressive in the second half against the really injury-prone DeLand team. And then Mainland, obviously, I'm not sure we've seen what we know. You know, they haven't really played anybody since DeLand.
Right. Well, they beat Pine Ridge 57-10. Their offense got into gear. I mean, you expect that against Pine Ridge, a team they've traditionally...
Bit of a slow start against Pine Ridge.
Right. It's a team they traditionally handled pretty easily, though. Teron Keith had 6 touchdown passes in the game. TJ Lockley had 4 touchdowns. A big game for both those guys. Lockley's speed is really enticing, and you've seen it kind of come to the forefront in the games that he's played for Mainland. They really like him at that wide receiver spot. The defense, the standout performer on defense was probably Lamondre Joe, who had a sack and an interception in the game for the Bucks. You touched on Seminole. This is a team that, the AP poll comes out. We're filming this on Tuesday. The AP poll comes out in just a handful of hours. It's likely they're going to be in the top 3. They're that good at the top classification in 8A. A really well-balanced team. For the fans who maybe haven't seen Timmy McLean, the quarterback at Seminole, give us a little bit of your thoughts on him, a lefty and a really good player as a 3-year starter.
He can make all the throws. I mean, he made a throw in the second half last week when they really got rolling, where he was on one side of the hash and threw it across the field. I mean, a quick out pass across the field. It was almost a 50-yard pass and hit the receiver right in stride. He was the difference last week. Quarterback play was the difference last week. And DeLand obviously was hurt. They were banged up. Avante Williams didn't play, and they played well. And the defense for DeLand was really good. I just think Seminole had too many athletes and was asking too much for a DeLand team not at full strength to win. But Tim McLean is their best player. They have some running backs who are fast and shifty. So Mainland's going to have their work cut out for them.
Great quarterback match, because we mentioned Keith, how well he played. He's the second leading passer in the county right now, behind Andrew Aceable at Father Lopez. So this should be a really enticing matchup and a really fast-paced, potentially a high-scoring game too.
Yeah, you're going to have to make sure if you're Seminole or DeLand defense, you have to tackle, because Timmy McLean wiggled in and out of tackles. He kept plays alive. 3rd down and 4th downs last week for Seminole were their bread and butter, is where he made his play. So Mainland's going to have to be really careful on those downs to keep him within their sights. That's the first big game of the week. Heading down south to New Smyrna Beach. New Smyrna, they coming back from a road trip to Alabama, where they got a big win. They've now put together 2 in a row. They host Spruce Creek. Just a punch in the gut for Spruce Creek last week. Had that game on lock. They were dominating. They were about to go up by 2 scores at the half. And then the wheels came off, and they did not go back on.
Yeah, Andy Price was the first one to admit they just did not recover from a few of the turnovers. They fumbled at the 1-yard line right before halftime, and it would have given them a 2-touchdown lead. They threw a costly interception in the 3rd quarter that led to the go-ahead score. They had 2 snaps go over Nick Cristiano's head that caused directly to touchdowns, both picked up by Altariq Lumpkins inside the 10-yard line, ran it right in. Just so many missed opportunities early, came back to bite them. The turnovers were the big story. New Smyrna Beach has been a nice little turnaround. They've gone out west on 2 separate occasions. One's out to Tampa. They beat Tampa Bay Christian. They went and beat Gulf Shores, Alabama last week. Really tough test for them. They struggled majorly against Marvin Scott last year. They gave up 212 yards and 4 touchdowns to the running back who's committed to Nebraska. they are going to have to find a way to bottle them up and force Spruce Creek to throw, to be a bit more varied. We didn't see them really all but once throw the ball with any sort of success against Flagler Palm Coast. They did have a really nice touchdown connection from Cristiano to Kevin Minkler.
Yep.
But
who we touched on in this program last week.
They have to find a way to bottle up Marvin and get them into 3rd and long and make them into more predictable situations. Otherwise, it's going to be a long night again for the Barracudas.
No, New Smyrna Beach I don't even want to know what their expense report's going to look like from all the mileage they've racked up between going from here to Tampa and here to Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Nice booster club there in New Smyrna.
A lot of Happy Meals on the way back and forth. McDonald's has been a popular place on I-10 and I-75. I'll be at that game, I think. We haven't given out assignments yet, but it seems like somewhere I'd be. Flagler and Fletcher. I'm not going to Flagler. It's too far, and New Smyrna's closer. And it's 2 area teams in this. I digress. Flagler and Fletcher. Flagler coming off a huge win. I think one of their first wins of the year. Can they carry that momentum against a good Fletcher team?
Yeah, Fletcher's lost 2 important games. They lost to Sandalwood and they also lost to Fleming Island. So they're a little bit behind the 8 ball right now. They're going to have to play catch up. They can't really afford many more losses. So they're going to come in very desperate in this game. For Flagler, the unknown is whether Donovan Montoya is going to be ready to play. He left with an injury in that game before
Seemed
halftime.
ominous afterwards, the quotes from Travis.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what exactly happened. It did come on a collision. I believe that there was a penalty that was thrown on that play. So whether he's available or not is going to be important. Preston Roberts has certainly looked capable and certainly looked like he can lead an offense. Roland was very complimentary of him and giving them a spark when they needed it in the second half of that game. The running back situation looks to be pretty set in stone. They went with Ty Jenkins' speed early. They went with Mark Genus' power and durability late. That may be the recipe for success the rest of the way. They would love to get ahead of teams and then kind of pound away with Genus, who's such a tough tackle at about 210 pounds, and kind of wear you down like that. For Flagler, a really good opportunity to get to 4-0. And they are now the number 1 team in the area for the Fab Five this week, which was going to ruffle some feathers considering that DeLand beat them last year. But they've gotten off to a good start, and that Creek win is a nice little feather in the cap for them.
You mentioned the Fab Five. Atlantic moved up a spot in the Fab Five. I don't agree with that. But hey, nothing against Atlantic. I just don't think the Spruce Creek loss is enough to put them down. Anyway, they will get Matanzas this week. No reason to think they shouldn't keep rolling.
Yeah, I mean, Matanzas is going to feel confident coming into this game, too. They came back from 17 down to beat Middleburg 35-30. Really saw some sparks of life, some flashes from Matanzas, and Noah Cundiff is a really dangerous player. He had 3 touchdowns in that game. So he'll be certainly the player that Atlantic is going to keep an eye on, as well as Tristan Williams, who's gone off over 100 in 2 games, I think, this year on the ground. So there's more than meets the eye, I think, with Matanzas.
Seem to be getting better.
Yeah, and Atlantic, they wasted some opportunities last week. I actually thought they could have really pulled away from Melbourne Central Catholic earlier in that game. They had 4 drives inside the 20 that produced no points. They ended up, eking it out 25-19. The defense twice last week produced a handful of takeaways. Jay Brockington had 3 interceptions last week. Atlantic, I think, is favored in this game, but it's going to be tough. It's a different type of offense when you go up against an option. Yeah. It's nothing that they've seen yet this year, so it'll certainly be worth monitoring if they get too over aggressive. But if they stick to their gaps, if they stay disciplined, I think Atlantic that has the man-to-man talent to beat Matanzas.
It's like in the ACC, no one liked to go up against Georgia Tech. They dreaded that game because of the triple.
Well, now Georgia Tech doesn't like to go against the Citadel. They run the same offense right at them.
Before we leave, anything else to hit on? I know Father Lopez had a 1-1 week last week. They rebounded nicely Friday. They get frostproof, which I think is probably a decent test for them this week.
Yeah, and it's all about that passing game. I mean, when Eddie Whipple goes off, the 2 games they've won, Eddie Whipple's gone for over 200 yards receiving. Yeah. And he also added a big game rushing last week. So that's the task is, if you can slow down Whipple, they haven't really shown that they've been able to truly beat you any other way offensively. Satellite was able to bottle them up. They held them for negative rushing yards. But there's more, with Father Lopez. Of course, Ryan Waddell is a really strong player on both sides of the ball. Acebol is a very competent quarterback as well. The other game worth monitoring will be DeLand and Daytona, the Battle of the Bone.
Battle of the Bone.
A good opportunity for DeLand to get back on its feet. Daytona's still looking for win number 1. in a rivalry game. They know they're going to be up against it, but Denzel Chapman has given them a little bit of something in the passing game. Threw a touchdown against Seabreeze as well as earlier in the week against Winter Spring. So that's something else to keep an eye on for Friday.
Another thing to keep an eye on is how much of a lead I'm going to stretch my picks into, because it's just been a friggin' bloodbath.
Yeah, it's not been great for me.
Anyway, I'll be at the Spruce Creek New Smyrna game. You'll be at the Seminole Mainland game.
Yep.
Facebook group's been on a roll. Keep it up. Keep commenting there. Zach Dean DBNJ on Twitter. Chris Boyle DBNJ on Twitter. We will have you guys covered. Week number 5. Some call it the halfway point, but because of hurricanes, I'm not going to call it that. We'll see you Friday.